welcome back to the Risk Takers and Trailblazers Women in Insurance. This podcast is all about learning from transformative women who have made amazing business career moves and provide support to those navigating in their own journey. I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts as per usual, Jen, Tanya, and Diane. Say good morning, ladies. And today we have the pleasure of welcoming Sheila Carmichael, an esteemed executive coach, leadership strategist, and author. Sheila has made significant contributions to the field of leadership in leadership development, and her work has empowered countless individuals to unlock their authentic potential. As you can see, I have her book, and I'm so excited today to talk about it. Sheila is the author of this new book. It's called Presence Self-Coaching Strategies. In this book, she presents a comprehensive framework for self-coaching, which we've had a little bit of a conversation before we started today to talk about. Not everyone can afford a coach or knows where to start. So the book really provides some great insight of how we can all start. Her practical strategies for self-coaching have helped many individuals overcome hidden barriers and cultivate a dynamic presence in their professional and personal lives. So without going any further and stealing your thunder, Sheila, welcome to our podcast, and we are so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Helen, Diane, everyone. I so appreciate the invite and can't wait to get into this conversation with you.
So let's start. Let's jump in because I'm super excited. And let's talk about what inspired you to write Presence. I noted why I'm excited about it, but I really want to hear from you as what drove you to start the book process.
Yeah, I wish I could say just one night I woke up and wanted to write a book. It was one of those kind of nudges about maybe 15, 17 years ago, working with some clients, and they kept saying, Sheila, when are you going to write a book? When are you going to, I don't want to write a book.
Really?
And I kept pushing it off and pushing it off. And it actually, Helen, was going to start off as just an 8-pager kind of deal to just give folks.
Really?
And I was so resistant. And about 2 years ago, something said, now's the time.
Nice.
Now's the time. People are really needing to hear something easy and practical to help them in the moment when things are just so stressed and so up on them to make more quality decisions. And so I leaned into that and I love it. It's like, wow. So think about it. 15 years ago, this book would not have been what it is today.
Right.
I needed to go through that journey to get to the quality of the way it's written today.
And did it take you long to write it? Once you had that epiphany to say, okay, now's the time.
Yeah.
Did it take you long? Talk about that process.
Yeah, the process itself, once it pressed in my heart, it truly was a spiritual moment, I must say. I was able to put the framework and get things together. The time was spent in, okay, I'm Coach Sheila, but I'm not perfect. And I say that in the book. My own inner critic, is this right? Is that right? Am I saying that? That took more time than actually getting the content out. It was evaluating it that really took up the most time.
Were there any key influences that really shaped your approach to writing the book or your coaching or your leadership? Like, is there anything that really was that pivotal moment that was like, okay, this is it?
I don't know if there was any one person or thing that was a pivotal moment, but I will tell you this, when it was done and through the editing process, because you're reading it over and over again, that was when I got that confirmational pivot, like, yes,
Nice.
this is good. It to the point, can I be honest? I was like, wow, that's really good.
Yes, can pat myself on the shoulder for a second. Good.
Brilliant, Sheila. That was good. That was good.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of it, right?
Yeah. Well, I'd love to learn more about it. Can you give us an overview of just what the book is about and what you believe it's important for today's leaders to read it and what it will give them?
Yeah. So this is a non-traditional self-help book. So let's just put that disclosure out there now. This is not one of those where I'm going to say, okay, in chapter 1, here's the first step. Chapter 2, here's the set. If you're wanting that, then don't get it. That's not what this is. This is a book that is designed to know that you are an adult, you're a professional, you've got some years of experiences around your belt, and every once in a while you get into those moments where you're like, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying. So you're going to hear me apply my formula, the 3D authentic presence formula, through a flow of events, either for myself personally or clients, which I'll add the clients' examples are a common theme. They're not, if you read this and you think, oh, Sheila coached me, and so that must be my example. No. For anonymity and confidentiality. I've changed names and reworked it a little bit, but the theme of here's what's happening. So you're going to hear and read about real life examples, not just personally, but professionally, and how to apply this formula into those real world situations, as well as at the end of each chapter, there's going to be a section for you to take some time and reflect about your own situation. So there's examples. I'll just, like the very first chapter, moving from confusion to flow, right? How to get back to you and finding your purpose and why. There are different elements that help this formula really, really punch in and sink.
Yes, I can't wait to read it.
You talk about the 3Ds. Can you just give a little sneak peek? I know what they are, but just prelude to the audience maybe what they are, and their importance.
Yes, yes. So over the years, I have even written Forbes articles around this formula and played with it and experimented it with my clients. And I noticed that, especially executives in a corporate environment, I need something quick I can grab and something I can easily apply. It doesn't need to be too heady and too academic, but it needs to be founded on sound research. And so in order to apply this 3D authentic presence formula, the very first step is you got to stop. You got to pause. So when you're hitting that wall or whatever it is, that critical moment, take a moment and center yourself. And then you can enter into the first D, which is called define the external realities. And a lot of times as executives, we do that very well. What's going on? And we just map out all those different things. And then the next D is now defined or discover actually the internal realities. And that's the area we don't always do. Kind of what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What are my spidey senses or my intuition saying? And then that gives you the next step, which is making a decision, a conscious choice based on what you've just acquired from the first two. And what I found is that many times we've been so skilled. We got a proven success formula. It works. We default to it and we go, what's going on? And now I'm going to make this decision. And we forget the piece in the middle to give it enough time and space to say, okay, am I making the best conscious choice balancing these two realities, or am I defaulting to something without truly trying to understand it? And you could literally do this 90 seconds or less.
Yeah.
If you don't overthink it.
There's the key word.
Yeah.
I know this is maybe a bit of a strange question, but have you ever, throughout your coaching or even writing these 3Ds, have you ever experienced number two, so D number two, right? Almost overpowering D number one, and how you actually think through that, so you're not it's not that one is right over the other, but there's the reality versus the intuition, the feelings, I've named it over the years, so I don't know, maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
I love that question. I really do, because there's research that shows that we're operating with three minds: the way we think in our intellect, our emotions, our heart, and our gut, what our intuition is telling us. And we typically have one we default to the most, our favorite one. And we don't even balance those three internal. And so through the book, you'll hear and read some questions. I keep saying here because there's an audio book coming soon.
Ooh, there's a
Yay.
sneak peek. Love that.
Awesome.
So we don't balance those. And when we balance those, and I give you questions to help you really not just default to your fave, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of times we might be just very intellectually, and we even cloud the intellect with the heart.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
And you'll know that when someone asks, what are you feeling? And the response is, well, what I think, right? You're not telling me what you're feeling. If I ask the question, what are you sensing? And you're telling me what you feel or what you think, and senses, remember, ladies, all of us have the same five senses:
Mhm.
sight, hear, smell, taste, and touch.
Yeah.
Some may work more stronger than others. So we may be defaulting to the one that is the most comfortable, the more familiar,
Yeah.
without stretching ourselves to understand holistically what's really going on the inside.
Yeah. And I'm curious, and again, as I said, we will go around lots of different questions, but I'm curious to know your thoughts and feelings because I have a good friend and mentor who used to say there's a difference between your thoughts and your feelings, right?
Mhm.
And you've got to people need to learn those differences, right?
Mhm.
What you're feeling versus what your thought are very thinking are very different. But how do you feel about your gut? And people always tell you you should always go with your gut or rely on your gut. So what's your thought process on that of that statement? Go with your gut.
I think you should balance all three.
Love that. That's what I was hoping you would say. I'm not gonna lie. That is exactly what I think I wanted you to hear. So I love that
Really
that from a
do.
coaching perspective, that's what you're championing because I do agree with you. I think, if we always led with our gut,
Mhm.
some of our best decisions may not have been made.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you only lend to your intellect. So
Yeah, same
here's
thing.
a question. I'm just going to throw out a self-coaching question for you now.
Love it.
When you are faced with, and maybe it's not a big challenge, just a small challenge, but it has a sense of urgency to it. And it's a small challenge. Where is your tendency to grab the data? What data are you grabbing to make your decision? Now we've probably gone to school
Yeah.
and we've strengthened the intellect very well. Have you strengthened the vocabulary and the understanding of feelings and emotions?
Mm.
Do you know what are the many emotions? Do you have identifiers? I hate to call them labels, but do you have identifiers of your emotions? Because you can easily identify what you're thinking,
Yeah.
but are you identifying what you are emotionally going through?
Mhm.
We don't build the skill and the knowledge and the capabilities to understand
No, we
what
don't.
are my emotions. We
Mhm.
kind of slough them off. Oh, I'm happy, I'm sad. Can you go a little deeper? What does that mean?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right?
I feel
And
like
then
I've
with your intuition or your gut, what's triggering that? Where is that coming from?
Mhm.
What are the factors involved with that? Because I'm a little bit of a neuroscience geek too. So I'm like, your mind is pulling in references from your journey that are familiar and unfamiliar with a purpose of serving and protecting you, and it defaults to protect.
100%.
Yeah. I can, but if you find yourself saying, but, okay, we doing risk takers here, right? I might ask, how might we get some of your butts out of your way?
Mhm.
Because there's a default to protect. If I do and I can't, I'm trying to protect myself, right?
Mhm.
So I say all that to say, holistically, this is to help you with understanding who you are uniquely based on your thoughts, your experiences, and your skills. Not just to be efficient and get it done, but effective in the way you do it and in a sustainable way for you to make choices that are right for you. So, yeah, don't always go with your gut. Don't always go with your heart. And don't
Mhm.
always go with the smarts. just take a moment and bring them all in together. That's when you'll make your best decision.
I also think too, in the corporate world, we're taught not to have feelings.
Oh, yeah.
So it's always very much data-based, logical thinking. And because you're a neuropsych nerd, I'm an INFJ, like through and through. This is so I can identify what everybody else is feeling about something like very easily. But when it
Mhm.
comes to my own, I had like I'm still working on it. I can't separate the feelings of others and what mine are. Like it's something I have to like and you know what? When you said that third element distance, that time, like leave it, that's
Mhm.
the only way I
Yeah.
can be like, okay. And I feel like that third element, I know we're talking a lot about the logical thinking and the feeling, gut thinking, but that time piece for me has been critical. Just,
Yeah.
the pausing and yeah.
It is very critical, but you brought up a really cool point, Tanya. You said, I've been accustomed to in an environment that we don't express those feelings.
Mhm.
Even though naturally and innately I'm aware of these and I love these feelings, right? I want these things to come out. So now think about it. There was a movie, A League of Their Own, I think, with Tom Hanks and Madonna, right? And it was like, there's no crying in baseball, right?
Yeah.
There's no crying in corporate. There's no emotions.
No.
Stick to the facts. And if you've been in an HR arena, you were truly, let's just stick to the facts. We don't want to get the emotions for any other type of things like that. So now, if you have a tendency to not self-coaching question, if you have a tendency to not express or even take time to identify your feelings, what program or script are you falling to as a result of that?
Mhm.
What
Sheila, it's
experience?
the people pleasing script.
Yeah.
It could be people pleasing. It could be something, maybe it was something traumatic as a child or while you were working, whatever it might be. Something has been incorporated into your thoughts and your
Yep.
beautiful
Your DNA.
brain that's locked.
Yeah.
Danger, danger, don't do that.
Yep.
Trouble, trouble, that's going to cause an issue. Don't step away, whether it's for pleasing others or protecting yourself.
Mhm.
I think what's cool with age is that you start to, you start to actually, when you put some of these things into practice and you like you said, taking the minute, or even the day to really think through things and start to, write them down. Where is this thing coming from? Why am I feeling like this? Why is this, triggering me the way that it's triggering me? I feel like age brings this kind of sense of I want to understand versus push it away. I mean, I'm certainly feeling that as I get older, where I'm less pushing it away and more saying, okay, like let's deal with this already. Like, let's just figure this out, right? So it's I don't know if you noticed that, Sheila, in the folks you work with, but I think it is probably important for our audience or younger audience too, is that it feels almost better not to push it away, right? It gets to be really sometimes my brain goes to a more practical, this is here. I'd like to just work through it, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Um, versus making it something it's not or doesn't need to be, I guess.
The one thing that I
Go
wanted
ahead.
to throw in there is we have gotten to be so much better at it, like you were just saying, at our age, but also in the time we are in now. Back when we were kids, our parents
Yeah.
didn't really have the resources or there's not as much literature out there or research to help us, build that mindset at a young age. I know I've got a daughter that is kind of special needs, and we do a lot of work on like emotional regulation and identifying her emotions. So now at age 11 she's going to grow up thinking about it differently than I did in
Yeah.
8, right?
Very good point.
Absolutely. Coach Carmichael here has all these questions running in her head right now. I'm not going to ask them all. When you mentioned that earlier about where we're at in a stage in our lives and the timing of that, the environment and how the things that are going on in the environment, whether it's outside in the workplace or even in your own home, your own village, your community, whatever it might be, whether it was an era, right? Our parents and the parents before, and the era we're living in today, and the era for our children for tomorrow. I have a section in the book that helps to reassess and to realign. That's actually what it's called. And that deals with your values and your purpose. If you think about the era in which, like, I'm thinking about even my own parents, their purpose was around survival, right? And think about what they did to instill in us to help us with survival. That was a core value. But survival for them meant something different through the different decades that they went through. And if you think about yourself, you mentioned earlier, Helen, like if you're a younger, seasoned leader stepping into the workplace, how are you defining survival right now? And then come back to it 10 years when you're married or have children, or 30 years after your parents are no longer with you and the kids are gone. All these different things. It's going to get defined differently. So understanding the definition and the weight, and frequently just reassessing that to get back to your own alignment. If I was to ask 20 people, what's the you would hear this all the time. What are your top 5 values? Family. Okay.
Really? Some days.
What's your definition of that?
Yeah.
It probably means something different today than what it did 10 years ago.
And I think that's a key. And I bring that up in some conversations I've had of late, is the leader that I was 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, to the leader I am today. There's value in noting those things. So I would say, as a mentor to people coming into the industry, I think that's a very valid exercise to do. Let's do this now, and let's check in on this in year 2, year 3, maybe even year 5. And it's okay for that to change.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would add to that, Helen, that it probably, the core value itself, we probably have many values, right? But we have some that are rising always to the top. Those are the core. That value the definition may have changed, and the weight of it may have changed. And it may switch or flex based on the situation.
Agreed.
So we're much more complex than just, if it's this, then it's that. We are humans. I love AI, don't get me wrong. And when it gets to where it needs to get to, it'll be fabulous. There's some wonderful things out there now. But let's remember, we are our own subject matter expert, and we bring a wealth to the table, understanding who we really are. If we just take the time and sit with it, and it doesn't have to be weeks on end, just micro moments to pause and ask yourself some deep reflective question, to just reframe that thinking, pivot that thought, change that thinking if you're trying to go after some different results.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
Very interesting.
Like if we were to recommend this book to someone who really needs to read it, describe that person to us, or describe some, like a couple different versions of who you think should pick up your book.
Well, cross
I
that
know.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes you're not always self-aware, right? Like you might not know that you might need some self-coaching. Like whether it's like, are you constantly feeling burnt out from decision fatigue, or so who would really benefit from this?
I love that question, because it wasn't designed in that manner. When I thought about the ideal reader, I was thinking about my ideal clients over the years. And those were the individuals who said, I'm at a point in my life where something I'm trying to figure out, I can't. They have some solid work experience under their belt. They've got a pretty decent track record for success. And it's like all of a sudden, something doesn't feel right. Something's a little weird, right? That's the ideal reader, because what the book is designed to do is to help you leverage what you know to take you to that next level. It's not designed to say, oh, if you've got this specific pain point problem, that's not what it is. It is trusting that you've just got to a point, something's not quite right. And I say this in the book, I hope that what this book is a reference guide for you that pulls all your knowledge, your training, your expertise into play and puts it into a mix where you can play even better. It's not discounting any of that. It's helping you to use those right tools in your toolbox in the manner that's going to work best for you, and not always use the same hammer to paint with, because that's not what it's designed for, right? You got other tools in there you need to go in there and grab.
I'm going to use that. I'm actually going to steal that and use that. Let's put the hammer down to paint people, because it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. It's not
And
going
that's
to
our
work.
full quote.
Yeah, that's my quote.
You
That's the
know,
title now.
it's interesting you say that, Sheila, because I have a network of friends now that we're middle aged, like in our 40s and in our 50s, and we have the career, we got the kids, we got the house, we're living the dream, but we feel like something's missing. Like
Yes.
we just don't feel fulfilled like we thought we would when we were younger, and we thought if we check these boxes, that's it. And I feel like, would you describe that like as a feeling like that kind of like something's not resonating?
Absolutely. So, okay, you gave Coach Sheila an opening with that. I can't help it.
I love it. I love it.
What if there's no more boxes to check? I don't need you to answer that. I just want you to reflect on that. What if you've already checked all the boxes, which you said, and there's another box to check?
That is like,
How would you show up differently?
Yeah.
that is like,
Ways would you show up differently if you knew your boxes were checked? Bam, I'm good.
yeah. And what if you don't even know? Like you said, Tan, you're like searching for something and you're like, well, wait a second, I've checked my boxes. So why am I, not? I also think too, depending on that path, like you said, from the 20s to the 40s or mid 40s to 50s, there's been a lot going on. If you've had kids and you've had, marriages and career, so it's almost like there hasn't been a lot of time to sit down and reflect. And
Great point.
I think definitely there's a ton of us in that kind of midlife range that are struggling with that. But I love that advice where it's, if you've ticked all those boxes, how do you come back to yourself and show up differently?
Here's one more for you. If you've ticked all the boxes, instead of asking yourself why, what else are you looking for that you don't already have? What makes you think that? And these are, not to stack them, but they're just kind of reference points for you to think about. What are you looking for that you don't have? What fear is hindering you from accepting what you do have? And what's really getting in the way of you just embracing that the next one's going to come when it needs to?
Love it.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. I myself have had so much insight from just these past 35 minutes already. Plus, I've already read the book, but like seriously, just different feelings. It's so amazing to actually hear you put them out there. So the audio book, super excited for that, because I do think that it's great to read it, but to hear you put it in that tone and in your verbiage is just going to help and elevate so many different people. That's just the way.
So, Sheila, do you have like, for the coaching, does it lean to one, is it lean to females mostly, men? Is it a mixture of both?
I had an amazing mother and father where, even though the things that they were dealing with, and I know we're dealing with a lot in this world, they raised my brother and I everybody is a person. Everybody should be loved. Everybody needs to be cared for. As far as where my passion goes, it's really for, I've gone through so much in different corporate environments. While they were all fabulous companies to work for, work with, I should say, there were not always stellar leaders that I had to experience, and there were not always some situations weren't always the best, and some of those are even in the book as well. So I just have a passion for that, corporate leaders and executives, because there's so many, Tanya, you mentioned your Myers-Briggs type. Well, can you imagine in a box, virtual or not, where you've got over thousands of people and everybody's combination of what that is, trying to work together.
Yeah.
So that's really my focus, because I know that there are things you're trying. How do you play to your true self in an environment that's not really your environment?
Right.
How do you align with other people's values from a corporation? If you think about the layers, the corporation, then within your department, and then within your own team. There's so many layers there, and not give away yourself. That's exactly what happened to me. I kept playing to talk about people pleaser, Tanya.
Yes.
I was the corporate people pleaser. Whatever you like, from Coming to America with Eddie Murphy, right? And I would make it happen. And somewhere each time I kept doing this corporate code alignment, I lost myself. It filtered into my marriage. I'm pleasing everyone else, and I forgot about me on some of the basics. And when you do that over and over and over again, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, everyone has that tendency sometimes. You're stripping away at yourself. My mother also had a phrase. She must be pressing in my heart today. Thank you, Mom. She would say, when you get mad enough, Sheila, you'll do something about it. Like my brother, he's a different character than mine. He didn't need that from Mom, but I needed to hear that. When you get mad enough, you'll do something about it. Be mad, like crazy mad. She meant angry and upset. And it does. Now that I know that about myself, I can get ahead of it. I don't have to wait till it happens. Now I can make a conscious choice. Am I going to wait until I get angry about this to do something? Or do I want to reframe my thinking to do something now?
That's a great point. I think a lot of us wait. We can bury it, or like, that's fine, that's okay. Because I think dealing with it in the moment, you don't want to have awkward conversations. You just want to kind of, especially in the corporate world, you just want to, and then that anger comes out and it's too late. Like you waited too long. Yeah.
You've literally self-hijacked yourself with your own success formula. Got that hammer trying to paint again.
It's a visual, right?
It's not working.
No, not at all. That's hilarious.
So, Sheila, we're about at time now. Is there, like, so our audience, our listeners are primarily insurance industry leaders and technology leaders. Is there something that, like, something they can take away from today, and any piece of advice? I mean, you've given a lot. There's so many things I can post on social media from this recording alone, but is there anything else you want to tell our audience?
I do. I've worked in the insurance industry before, familiar with that, and had to partner with quite a bit of tech folks, so definitely familiar with that. Every industry or function, let's say discipline within a corporation, has an attraction to a super talent, right? And one of the things it has is a culture that aligns and pulls that in. So when I think about insurance and technology, it's very black and white. It's got some regulations around it. And it's attractive. And this is my opinion. I'm not saying this is consistent. It's just Sheila's point of view, that it has a tendency to attract very highly analytical, project processing mindsets. which is great. You need that in those environments. That's how you keep them low risk, right? That's how you mitigate the risk. That's how you keep quality up, like in finance, all these different things, right? It's a fabulous superpower. All right, so Coach Carmichael's got her self-coaching question. Are you aware of when you're using your superpowers to serve you, or when your superpower may be hindering your success? Are you using your superpower? It's so natural. It's a natural talent to throw on the analytical hat and start processing and evaluating and da 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 da. And at what point do you stop over analyzing and over? And is that what this situation is asking for you? It's so natural. It kicks into overdrive without you even realizing it. And I've seen it time and time again. But what if, Sheila, and what do you think? And da, 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 da. It's like, okay, let's take a moment, do a deep breathing or something. And what do you think this situation is really asking of you? Because presence is truly an inside job. And it sounds like you're attacking it from your outside skills. Is that, if it's serving you, all right, more power to you. But you're frustrated and you're upset, or you're confused, or you're unsure. Those emotions, here's the key gem. I got like 999,000 key gems, but here's one to really take to the bank. Emotions, especially in these environments where we can't show them, we're not even supposed to speak about them, right? Those emotions are your dashboards for your critical decisions. You drive a car, you have a dashboard that tells you when the tire is flat, you need some oil. Hey, might want to go get some gas. It's time to do a maintenance checkup. That is your indicator. Hey, we need to pause here, because something's indicating something.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
So pay attention to your internal dashboard and understand your amazing superpowers so that you can regulate where they're being overused and used best.
Very cool.
Amazing.
I think that's time. Sheila, honestly, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. I think Helen, Jen, Diane, I think we were all like, okay, we need to write down a lot of things that we have to practice here. So, thank you so much. I encourage everyone who is listening today or watching the podcast to pick up a copy of Sheila's book. It is Presence, Self-Coaching Strategies to Ignite Authentic Leadership. We're going to link it everywhere. And we're also going to have a little LinkedIn contest, and we will give away a free copy. So stay tuned for that. And thanks again, Sheila. Follow us on LinkedIn, on YouTube, share with colleagues or friends or anyone you think would get a lot of value out of this episode.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.